Bonjour, this is Véro, taking you on a stroll in the beautiful historic center of Bordeaux today. I would say in probably what is one of the most elegant parts of town. This is the Cours de l'Intendance. It is pedestrian only, and you can see the tracks of the very efficient tram that runs around Bordeaux. The walk will start today in a covered passage, the Passage Sergey, named after the gentleman who financed it, a local businessman, a wealthy one, no doubt, in the early 19th century. You know, I love those covered passages because I live in Paris, and so I get to see a lot of them. But I like finding them in other cities as well. Recently, I took you in Nantes through the Passage Sergey. So feel free to look up this video on my YouTube channel, the Passage Sergey, Pommeray. But here is le Passage Sergey. We are reminded, red carpet arrival, no less. Look at the beautiful glass and steel verrière or rooftop that is very typical of those 19th century passages. Here is la boutique à chapeau, the hat store. Usually you will find some fancy stores and boutiques. Those passages are always elegant places to shop, or used to be, at least in the 19th century. Here is La Lique. Even the eyeglass or eyewear store looks very elegant. So it's a very short passage compared to others I may have shown you in Paris or in Nantes. Passage means it connects two streets. It's a way of getting from point A to point B while being protected by the elements, especially in the winter. And a lot of elegant people appreciated that back at the time when it was built, and still do today. So now we are on a square called la Place du Chamoli. And this will be a great place to feature Bordeaux's elegant architecture. The blonde colored limestone facades, all these stones that are so easy to carve and sculpt, came from local quarries a long time ago. The only problem with limestone is that with age and pollution it turns gray, even dark gray. And Bordeaux, for many decades, from the 60s through the 90s, looked really sad. As you can see, a lot has been done since then to make it look this good. We are standing outside a beautiful local church. It is known as Notre-Dame de Bordeaux. And this church was built in the 17th century in the Baroque style. I just went inside and filmed a video for Friends with Véro club members. I share a lot of content in social media, but if you enjoy behind the scenes peeks and exclusive content, I urge you to look me up on Patreon at patreon.com/FrenchGirlInSeattle, and you will get to see even more. Let's see, I think I'll go this way. For those of you who don't know me and are visiting this channel for the first time, my name is Véronique Véro. I am known online as French Girl in Seattle because for more than 2 decades I lived in the United States. I've returned to France. I am a tour guide, a long-time travel blogger, a French language instructor. And in social media, on Facebook, Instagram, on YouTube, under France with Véro, I continue to share my love of Paris, France, and French culture. This is my job. This is what I do for a living now. This gentleman is trying to park. Good luck to him. So you can find me daily in social media, on Facebook, where I share many travel stories and pictorial travel logs and videos. And then, like I mentioned earlier, if you want more stories, more photos, more videos, and more live events, look me up on Patreon and consider signing up for as little as the cost of a glass of wine each month. But enough about that. We are in Bordeaux, considered one of the most elegant cities in France. And I think on this short walk you will be able to see why. I am filming this in August of 2020, and as you know, this is a very special summer, not in a good way. Tourism has really slowed down or come to a standstill depending on where you are in France. Bordeaux remains very busy. Locals are here, and I also spot quite a few French tourists, including myself. Some European tourists as well, but none of the major crowds that we have seen in the past in all these popular French cities like Paris. Talking about tourists, and here they are in the little train. It's not a French city if you don't have somewhere in the historical center of town a beautiful carousel. This one features some of the landmarks in Bordeaux, the covered market of Les Capucins, the famous Pont de Pierre, the big bridge, the tram, and of course the children are loving it. We are standing right now in a very elegant part of town, along Les Allées de Tourny, T-O-U-R-N-Y. They are named after the gentleman who built them in the 18th century. He also built the local public garden, which is beautiful. You can see the elegance in the design. And Les Allées, the alleyways, are lined on both sides by very elegant buildings in this cream-colored limestone I was mentioning earlier. I am taking you now to la Place de la Comédie, the Comedy Square, because one of the most magnificent buildings in Bordeaux stands there. It's midday now, so the sun is getting very hot. And I know this building looks at its best in the sunset late afternoon, but we will have to make do. On top of this building, on this building along the facade, above this first row of windows, you see those faces sculpted in the stone. They're called mascarons, and Bordeaux is very famous for them. There are a lot of buildings where faces are looking down at you. They could be gods and goddesses, or there could be just people. Some of them are quite funny. Let's try and cross here. Lots of construction going on. Good to see it's not just in Paris. The elegant Intercontinental Hotel is right here. And right across from it is the building I want to show you today. We are in the center of that square known as la Place de la Comédie. And this building is le Grand Théâtre, the Grand Theater. But it is actually the seat of the Bordeaux Opera House. I love coming here and sitting on those steps late afternoon. The interesting story about this building is that it was built about 80 years before the Paris Opera House, l'Opéra Garnier. Victor Louis was the architect. You may remember his name because Victor Louis also designed the covered galleries around the Palais Royal in Paris. But the grand staircase inside this building, le Grand Théâtre, is so magnificent that Charles Garnier, when he built the Paris Opera House many decades later, got his inspiration here actually. You can see the tracks from the tram. Construction started just a few days ago. They're working on the tram, just like in Paris, they're working on the subway and other trains constantly. I guess summer is a good time to do this. But you can see the beautiful buildings. And in the distance, that column is known as la Place des Quinconces, and that column is actually a tribute to a group of people who played a big part during the French Revolution called les Girondins. But look at the buildings around le Grand Théâtre. You can really get a feeling, I think, for the elegance of this neighborhood. I could try and cross and see if we can stand under it in the shade. You see they advertise the National Opera of Bordeaux on these signs. And this is a restaurant that's very popular. This does look a little bit like the arcades around the Palais Royal. You can see where Victor Louis, the architect, may have gotten his inspiration from, since he did both. Better view here of the column, the tribute to les Girondins. The merry-go-round, the carousel we came from. And down that street you can see the church we just saw, Notre Dame. And from here, a much better view of the Intercontinental. I mean, this is a massive hotel. And the people sitting outside have the best view. Let's see. You can see the decor is quite grandiose, as we say. The entrance of the restaurant. We have artists playing music. We have construction sounds. I think I'll be heading into the old town now, which sits right behind that facade, to get a little bit of peace. The big street between those two buildings is the one we started on, le cours de l'Intendance. Okay. Major construction along le cours de l'Intendance, which is lined by very fancy boutiques. And if I turn around, I want to show you this piece of art by a Spanish artist. It represents a woman's face. And here's a glorious view of Le Grand Théâtre, the Bordeaux Opera House. Now, we are entering here one of the busiest streets in town, pedestrian-only street. It's called Rue Sainte-Catherine, Saint Catherine. It is the main shopping street in Bordeaux and probably one of the longest in Europe. It crosses the city from north through south and sits where an old Roman road known as the Cardo, the main road, used to sit. So you might say it's been here for a long time. And everywhere you look, beautiful architecture. It doesn't all date back to the 17th or the 18th century like some of the buildings we've seen earlier. Some of it is pure 19th century. You'll recognize les Galeries Lafayette. There seems to be one in every major French city, not just in Paris. And that dome dates it to the second half of the 19th century, probably. Here's the main entrance with a barometer. I will wrap up soon and do another walk later in the old town, where the streets are much smaller and more peaceful as well. Many squares, cafes and restaurants where the Bordelais, the locals, like to sit outside, enjoying the fresh air and the sun. From here you have a nice view of Rue Sainte-Catherine, and you can kind of see how long it is and how busy, because it's noon on a Tuesday in August. And Bordeaux only has 2 covered passages. We saw the first one earlier at the beginning of this video. The second one sits here. I haven't tried it on this trip yet, so maybe now is a good time. You can see that it's not in as good of a shape as the other one. But why not? Let's go for it. I don't mind that it's not as perfect actually. The details are still great. And it's a little bit quieter here, isn't it? Oh yeah, this is a beauty, all right. Another verrière, the glass rooftop, and very nice architectural details on the side, even if the walls have seen better days. Some of the windows are broken. And definitely the stores are not your usual elegant boutiques that you would find along a beautiful covered passage, like the one we saw in Nantes in another video, or the one I showed you earlier. But I think it's still worth looking at, don't you? Voila, I am stepping outside on the other side of the passage. It was a little longer than the first one. The opera house, or the Grand Théâtre, is right there on the side here. You can see it. And this is a nice look at la Galerie Bordelaise that we just walked through. Now, do you see what I was saying about granite being a stone that looks really pretty with its cream color? But with time, this is what happens to it. And unless you clean it, then it looks really dark and gray. So this could be the history of Bordeaux, really. This is what the city looked like through the second half of the 20th century, until they tackled it and started cleaning it and renovating it extensively. And this section here is what it looks like when they do that. Very interesting to see. I'd like to thank you for following me on this walk. Another walk you can find on the France with Véro YouTube channel. Again, my name is Véronique Véro, and I will continue my travels around France, around the western part of France actually, in August this year. Feel free to follow me on social media. And all the information you need to find me will be in the video notes. Thank you very much. À bientôt.